there we go. I got it. 8th try every time. All right. Welcome, everyone. I'm Paige. I'm an alcoholic, and so grateful you're all here. And so where we're going to be picking up today is page 74. And we are at the first full paragraph where it says, if we cannot or would rather not do this. And I feel like it's definitely a natural place to leave off and pick up. I did not have a natural stopping place. That wasn't that. So I'm just going to give us a little bit of review for those that weren't here last week or those that were and like, wait, what are we talking about? So we're right in the chapter Into Action, which is rude, because I was kind of hoping we'd have the interesting on our laurels, into like, oh, when do we get a nap? Don't worry, we got a quiet hour here in a bit. Exciting. But into action. And so what we dove into was the directions for step 5. And first and foremost, what we spoke about is why do I gotta do a 5th step? Who wants to do that? Like, why do I gotta do one? So the reason why, the best reason first, is because if I am not fearless and thorough in my 5th step, if I do not take this course of action, I will likely drink again. That is why. That's why. And so we were talking about that. And then we spoke about what I like to call the Missy Elliott promises. And if you guys know where it's like, man, if I go on with the rest of the program and without doing a 5th step, I'm going to think I lost my egoism and fear. I'm going to think that like I've humbled myself, but I really haven't experienced that humility, that fearlessness, that honesty. You got it, girl. Missy Elliott promises. And the reason we call it, I call it. I should not. It is not a group thing. It is communal, has not happened, but I call it the Missy Elliott promises. Because if you flip it and reverse it, just like a girl Missy in 2002 in her song Reverse It, what happens is if I am fearless and thorough in that 5th step, I will learn that humility. I will learn that honesty. I will have that experience. And that's what I'm after in Alcoholics Anonymous. I am not after an idea. I'm not after a belief. I'm not after an opinion. I am after an experience. Now, some of you have heard me say this earlier today, but listen, if I came to Alcoholics Anonymous and you know those days when you're just wound tight, and everything is on your last nerve and you just need some freaking relief. I just got to take the edge off. And what I did was I was talking about how, what happens when you take a drink? Well, if you take a drink of alcohol, your liver will metabolize it and it will convert into enzymes that which will be transmuted. You can tell I actually don't know. I'm kind of making this up. We can ask the actual medical people. What happens? I don't know. But it produces an intoxicating effect. And if you're like, oh, that's so annoying, I just need a relief. And it's a little like that where I want to talk about the steps, but I don't want to experience them. I have to take the actions to get the effect, just like I have to take a drink to get the effect produced by alcohol. Hearing about the effect won't get me drunk. It might get me bored if you're trying to like get into the liver enzymes. So then what we dove into was who do we do a 5th step with? Who do we share that 5th step with? And so the first option that we were given, we did a little bit of a big book bounce around, right? So we're convinced we got to do a 5th step. Fine, you twisted my arm, I'll do it. Who do I do it with? We popped over to page 96 in the chapter Working with Others, where he spoke about the first person that I can consider to taking my 5th step with would be my sponsor. The person who's taking me through the steps. And here's my experience. When I work with people, I sit with them as they go through their 4. I help them write their 4. So by the time we get to step 5, they're like, I'll just do it with you. You haven't rejected me yet, yeah. But so that's the first person that we can consider. You don't have to, nobody's going to make you, but I think it's the strong first contender for a number of reasons. because we're building that relationship, and they're going to be able to see and spot and help point out the patterns that we're going to continue to have. They're also going to help us navigate the amends process. It is helpful to do that. But if we don't want to do that, we can do it with a religious person. A priest, a minister, a rabbi, some religious person, because they're often quick to understand what we're doing. And what we're doing is to try to clear away the stuff inside of me that is blocking me from this power. I'm trying to clear away the guilt, the shame, the resentments, the fear, the defects, the stuff that is blocking me from this power. That is what I am trying to do. And a religious person might understand that, yes, you're trying to build a relationship with a power beyond yourself. And to do that, you got to clear it away. But a lot of times they don't always understand. Or they're like, I don't know you, so I may not give you a whole lot of feedback. And so this is where we pick up. And these are the directions. So if we cannot or would rather not do this, so we're not open to somebody who is religious, we search out our acquaintance for a closed-mouth, understanding friend. And in 2025, I had to check my calendar. I'm like, what year is it? In 2025, we can do fifth step. I mean, we have an abundance of women and men in this room that could receive, Zoom room, that could receive your fifth step. There is no reason to postpone. You got options. You got options. We got people that will do it and be grateful to do it. It says perhaps our doctor or psychologist will be the person. Okay, here's what I'm going to throw out. This book was published in 1939. And there are really only 2, maybe 3 meetings in the world. 2 of them were in Ohio. 1 was in New York. So if I was to get sober, how I was doing it was I was getting a copy of this book and doing my best to follow its directions to have this experience. I might not have the privilege of somebody to take me through the steps. I might not have a sponsor, so who would I do it with? And it makes sense that in 1939, they would be like, maybe your doctor or your psychiatrist will be the person. And I will say in 2025, I don't think that is the most applicable direction. A couple reasons. That would be expensive. I don't know about you, but I don't tend to get a whole lot of time with doctors. It's a quick 15-minute in and out. I'm not getting that fifth step out in that time. You know what I'm saying? Also, I feel like most psychologists, it's like $200 an hour. Think about your last fifth step. Goodness gracious, I'm gonna do it with a drunk that I can do for free. You know what I'm saying? And then what'll happen is I'll be like, doctor, let me share your deep dark secret I have. And they'll be like, do you need something for indigestion? I don't know. Like, that's not kind of what they do. And so I might not recommend doing it with a doctor or a psychiatrist. And also, too, a lot of doctors and therapists, they're taking a different angle than what we're taking. We're going through the angle of where was I at fault? So I don't recommend that. It may be one of our own family. Oh, dear Lord, no. No. If you guys remember in The Office, where like Michael Scott is like, no, like that level of emphasis. No, in 2025, listen, I got sponsees. I will throw them under the bus. They will listen to your fifth step. Do not do it. Do not do it with your family. And again, you could understand why they have this, this suggestion, because 1939, I have a copy of this book. Okay, maybe I'm willing to get honest with somebody, and it's somebody I feel comfortable with. I get it. But in 2025, you can do it with a drunk. Yeah, actually, that's a good point. Therapists also keep documentation. So they're making notes on this thing, Ooh. And actually, I'll talk about that. I write things down too, but I then give them to you because I don't need those notes. So it says, so it may be one of our own family. No, no, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. What we do not need to do. Could you imagine? Hey, Ma, I got some sex inventory. Hey, sweetie, let me read you about. No, not do that. Do not do that. please, we'll get you somebody else. You don't even have to look. I will handhold you through that process. Do not take it to your spouse. All right. But we cannot disclose anything to our wives or parents which would hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. And obviously what we're talking about is sharing parts of our story that could hurt people. But I think that is a beautiful principle, that I don't get to get well by throwing other people under the bus. Now, I'm not talking about sponsees. You guys go under the bus. God's under there. I'm talking about that idea of like, I need to be responsible for me. And I don't get to hurt people with my actions to get well. And we'll see that as a theme and an idea that ties in when we make amends. So like when I make amends, I'm not going to share something that is going to be intentionally hurtful. And it's going to ask us to keep their well-being uppermost in our mind. So it says, such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand yet be unaffected. Just if you're wondering, you know who's going to understand and be unaffected? Sponsor. They will understand, not be affected. Also, if you are pedantic, I love you. I get you. Me too, guys. And you're like, hey, the word sponsor is not found in the first 164 pages. Accurate. That is true, but the job description is all over it. So just a helpful word to point to what we're doing. So take it to your sponsor is a good suggestion. The rule is, I thought there were no rules. Uh-oh, turns out there's a rule. The rule is we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. And of course, the context of this is, who do I take my fifth step to? But I think that is a really useful rule. Now, I have a feeling that there's a lot of people here that will hear that and say, that will hear the rule is I must be hard on myself, and will confuse that with kicking the crap. I was trying to find a word. I was like, oh, crap's too much of a swear word, and I'm watching my language, but I couldn't find another one that would just I am somebody that I will just beat myself up. You know, that morbid self-reflection, that is not what we're talking about when we say the rule is what we must be hard on ourselves. We're talking about that honest introspection. We're not talking about morbid self-reflection, and always considerate of others. And it's, those times where it's like, it's a selfish program. I don't think that's the case. I think it is a get connected with God and help others selfless service sort of program. I need to be hard on myself, not beating myself up, not holding myself to unreasonable standards. We can offer self-compassion and grace, but have a look at really, what am I doing and how am I hurting others? And think about them. So, notwithstanding the great necessity for discussing ourselves with someone, it may be one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. Nope, not applicable. Absolutely not. Literally, my sponsees in the room are like, oh no, she's going to throw me under the bus at any minute, right? Like, we have people who will receive your fifth step. We will. And we will help you. You don't have to do this alone. You do not have to figure out your copay to go do it with a doctor. That's my insurance joke. I actually don't get how how it works because I'm Canadian. But I just felt like I know copay. I know that word, so I thought I would sprinkle it in. I was going to make a joke about the fast food restaurants, but I couldn't remember which ones are in the States and which are only in Canada. So never mind. Not going to land that plane. Alrighty. So absolutely not. There is no reason that we should ever delay. So it may be that one is so situated that there is no suitable person available. If that is so, this step may be postponed. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I normally don't give my opinion so strongly, but no, don't postpone. There's no reason to postpone. Only, however, if we hold ourselves in complete readiness to go through it at the first opportunity. I got opportunities. We got you. So many opportunities. No postponing. We say this because we are very anxious that we talk to the right person. Now, what I will say is, in this book, it gives us a lot of direction on how to take the actions. And we're going to go through this. But we don't get as much information on how to receive a fifth step, right? And so I'm going to share with you how I do it, how I receive fifth steps, like what I do. I think I spoke a little bit about this last week as well, but I'm going to talk about it again because I can't remember if I did or I didn't, and I didn't listen to the whole recording, just the end, to make sure I'm starting at the correct place. So it says, we say this because we're very anxious that we talk to the right person. So this is who the right person is to receive the fifth step, which is to say that this is who I need to be to receive that fifth step. So it is important that he be able to keep a confidence so that I am able to keep what is shared during the fifth step in the fifth step. That I'm not talking about it with other people or anything like that. And I promise you, I'm not involved in gossip. So I'm good for that. You know why I'm not involved in gossip? Is because when people bring me gossip, I'm like, that sounds really difficult. Why don't we write some inventory on that? And then they stop calling me. It's wild how that is the cure to it. Let's write some inventory. No, I'm good. Click. Don't hear from them. Great. So that we keep a confidence. That he fully understand and approve of what we're driving at. So I understand that what we're trying to do, we're trying to see and be aware of the things inside of me that are blocking me from this connection to this power. And I promise you I approve. If I'm your sponsor, I approve. More than that, I am trying to drag you through, not kicking and screaming. As soon as you start kicking and screaming, you do you. But I am trying to go with you, shoulder to shoulder, doing this work with you. So I approve, and I understand what we are driving at. And that he will not try to change your plan. No, in fact, I'm trying to keep you to the plans. Let's go. Let's get her done, right? So, but we must not use this as a mere excuse to postpone. Again, there is no reason to postpone. In 2025, we have options. So when we decide who is to hear our story, we waste no time. There's no need to postpone. We have a written inventory. Check. We did that in step 4. Written. It's not in my head. I put pen to paper on it. And I do believe pen to paper is better than typing it out. Unless you do have some sort of disability that makes it difficult, it's best to do pen to paper because it does create these pathways in our brains. I used to be a tutor, which I know is shocking. Especially when you see me trying to do basic math. And I was a math tutor, so that's extra shocking. I know. But we have it written out and at pen to paper and are prepared for a long talk. So there's 2 things. One, how do I know if I've been fearless and thorough in my 4th step? It's going to be a long talk. I'm not going to be able to do it in 15 minutes. It's going to be a long talk. Now, as somebody who receives 5th steps, I need to be prepared that it is going to be a long talk. I like to book the whole day for it. Actually, that's not true. There's sometimes I try to do stuff after receiving a 5th step because I overdo it. I don't know how to say no to service. All right. So we explain to our partner. Now that partner is the person that we're doing that 5th step with. I mean, feel free to tell your spouse what you're up to. Helpful for them to know, but that's who we're talking about. We're talking about who is receiving our 5th step, which I don't think should be our spouse. Just going to throw it out there. We got other options. All right. He should realize that we are engaged in a life and death errand. So when I'm sitting down to receive that 5th step, am I aware that this is a life and death deal? Do I take it with that seriousness? And I promise you that I do. That's why I'm so like, let's go. You know, I joke a lot, but it's like underneath there's deadly earnestness. All right. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. And that too is my experience. That when people come and do a 5th step with me, I am honored by their ability to trust in me and for us to work together shoulder to shoulder upon this journey. And so those kind of point to some of the things that who I need to be to receive that 5th step. And so how do I receive a fifth step? Well, first and foremost, we always start with a prayer. And anyone that's worked with me, that's how I start everything. Every session I have with a sponsee, I always say it's always good to start with a prayer. Would you like to pray? Would you like me to pray? I don't mind either way. Every single time. And then a couple of times I've had sponsees where they think it's funny, and it is funny, where they're like, they say that before I get a chance to say it. And then do you know what I do? I say like, great, you can pray. And then they stop doing that. But yeah, I always start with a prayer. And for me, it doesn't matter what the prayer is. Some people might want to start with the third step prayer or the lay aside prayer. I like to do prayers from my heart. And we just kick it off with a prayer. Following that. Now, this is a bit difficult because I know we want concrete directions. And I am somebody who operates based on vibes, which is apparently not how you're supposed to budget or do your taxes. Vibes. But if I get a sense that they are nervous and I can feel that anxiety and I can feel that, and again, I can't tell you when it's there or when it's not there. I will often just address it where it's like, hey, I know you might be feeling a little nervous. One of the things we could do is we could just rip off that Band-Aid. Do you want to tell me that deep, dark secret, that thing you didn't write down, that thing you don't want to tell another person, and then we can just go and read your fourth step? And so I create that space. Now, if I don't do that at the beginning, or if I do it at the beginning, either way, I always ask it at the end. Is there anything else? Is there anything else that comes to mind? Is there anything else that you might have left off? Is there any secret that you might not have shared that you need to share with us? And so I'll do that. And then we get into it. And for me, I'm a big proponent. I've done fifth steps, as I've told you. I have bored 2 nuns. 2 of them separately. And again, I think I'm so like mysterious and like tough. Nope, I bored them. But I know what it's like to kind of feel rushed in that fifth step where I'm being vulnerable and the person's like, skip it, next one, skip it. That's the same as the other one. So I believe that if you took the time to write it, awesome. Welcome back. And welcome to those that just joined. We're on page 75. We're right before we pocket our pride. We're about to do that. But I am a big believer. If you took the time to write it, I will take the time to listen to it. I will do that. And what I always say is like, and this is going to be a lifesaver if you're receiving fifth steps. Please remember this. To start it with, we will not be having any discussion about column 2. If we need discussion, we will have it in column 4. Because when we're nervous and we want to start to get into the details of column 2, oh man, that will take that fifth step. Ooh, she be long. Oh, no. So if we have discussion, we're going to have it in column 4. Now, because I sit with my sponsees, you might not do this. And so you might have a lot of feedback that you're offering as you guys go through the work. Amazing, wonderful. Because I sit with my sponsees, as we do the fourth step, they've kind of already gotten the feedback. I typically don't have a lot of things to offer. And I also have trouble with my attention span. So what I learned to do, trouble focusing? What? Shocking. But what I learned to do is I would write what I hear them say their defects of character are. I would always start with selfish, which is how I act, and self-centered, which is how I think and perceive. And then I would write not what I think, not based on how they've been acting in the meetings. No. What I hear them say their defects of character are. And do you have to do this? No, this is just something I did to keep me focused and to help me make sure I'm listening, I'm engaged. And because I need an activity too, And so I would write, oh yeah.
Hey, Paige,
yes.
Give me that definition again of selfish and self-centered.
Absolutely, I can. Absolutely. And if I do well for time, which I'm looking at the clock, I'm not doing well for time. I was like, oh, I'll make sure I get it in 6 and 7. So it's good you ask. So selfish is how I act. It is how I behave in the world. And self-centered is how I think and how I perceive. Now I am going to give you my classic definition, or my classic example. So when I sleep with your husband, pee on your carpet, and steal your car, that is selfish. But when I'm worried you don't like me because I did those things, that's self-centered. Does that make sense? So selfish is the action. Self-centered is the way in which I think, perceive, and see the world. That self-centered is when you walk into the room and people are chit-chatting, and then you go into the room and they stop talking and immediately they're talking about me. And it's obviously not about my litany of accomplishments and successes. No, they're talking some stuff about me. That's self-centered. Or that self-centered self-pity, that like I'm the worst person that ever lived, or I'm going to ruin everything. That's self-centered. The selfish is when I lie to you. The selfish is when I am acting in a way that is inconsiderate or manipulating you. That's selfish. Self-centered is when I'm lens on me. So I write what I hear them say their defects of character. Now I start with those two because all of my defects can fit into those two categories. But I do find it helpful to go a little bit deeper, to be aware of more than just I was selfish, I was self-centered. To see the codependency. To see the various forms of dishonesty, like my walls and my masks and my inability to be honest about when I want to say no and I can't. To look at my self-seeking, where I'm self-seeking my sense of value and worth and esteem from these things outside of myself. My judging, my criticizing, my gossiping, so I can get a boost of better than ego because I'm operating with this feeling that who I am is not enough. To see those patterns. It gives me a lot of information to take into my quiet hour, to take into my 6 and 7. And so I find it helpful to write that down. Again, to really reiterate, if you don't want to do that or that feels overwhelming, to be fair, you can't mess it up, and if they've been thorough, you get a lot of opportunities to catch those defects, you guys. But I try to catch them from the 4th column of resentments, from the 3rd column of fears. That's a good place to catch them. And you can catch them from columns 2 and 3 of sex conduct. Now, one of the other things that I do is I also write what I hear them say their sex ideal is, because it is so important to have one. And so often we don't. And so the most obvious place that I get that sex ideal from is from the 4th column of sex inventory. But sometimes, in fears, it can be a little quiet. And if they got fears of like dying alone or fears of being single or, fears around relationships, you can sometimes get some sex ideal stuff from the 4th column of fears. That's just me trying to make busy work for me. But then what do I do? Well, what I do is if I meet them in person, I rip it out and I give it to them, but I work with a lot of people online. What I do is I take a picture of it and I send it to them so that they have both of those things for their quiet hour, their 6 and 7. Now, one of the things that I'll ask that they do, because I have no problem doing extra work, but I'm not doing too much extra work. So I ask them to take what I've given them as their sex ideal and to type it out. This one has to be typed. Type it out as prayers. And then what I do is I make a pretty little visual for them that they will not do anything with. But the hope is that they will, I'm just going from experience, that they will put on their phone or on the shelf and not look at ever again. But the hope is that they take that and they pray that on a daily basis. Or they take those lines from it and they take it into a meditation practice. And so that is what I do. I don't want to have to type out the prayers myself, so I ask that they type it out and send it to me. And actually, this is me in the middle of the big book study, making more work for me. I need an adult to be like, don't do this, Paige. But if you have some sex inventory and you have a sex ideal and you would like a pretty little thing to print out to look at, if you text me your prayers, I'll make it for you. I can't say no to service. I'm creating more service but I do that for my sponsees. I do that for their sponsees. So I will do that. You type it out. I got you. So that's how I do. And we end with a prayer. I send them away to do their quiet hour in 6 and 7. Because I sat with them through all of 4, through all of 5, like you got this. And then we'll meet and we'll pop into steps 8 and 9. So that's how I help take them through. So what we covered was, why do I have to do a 5th step? Gonna drink if I don't. Okay, who should I do my 5th step with? Good to do it with your sponsor. We got some other options if you're not open to it. And we're speaking about who we pick. Now, here is the direction on how to do a 5th step. We pocket our pride and go to it. Do it. That's how we do it. How do I do a 5th step? Do it. Put my pride in my pocket and I do it. Illuminating. And I love the idea of illuminating, because I love the idea of God as light. And part of the reason why is, what do we know from experience, is that when our secrets are held in the dark, they grow. But if I let that light of exposure on them, they dissipate, they fall apart. I see them for how they really are. But I love the metaphor of God as light that we have throughout this whole book in a number of places. And part of the reason is because light is not simply what I see. It is also the way in which I see. Bear with me with this. And some of you guys might remember this from when I was doing my hoarder's house metaphor. But if you, and actually I'll tell it this way. I remember I was doing my 3-week, hanging out in Ontario for 3 weeks. Most people will backpack in Europe, or or Southeast Asia. I'm just hanging out in the province of Ontario, just bumming around. And we were driving out for me to speak at this meeting in Trenton. And it was October in Ontario. So think Ontario, think like Maine, Vermont, like the rich red maple. Like it was beautiful. And I'm having a great time. I'm like, look at the trees. I don't get out much, so it doesn't take much. And we're driving, I think we were driving by Lake Ontario part of the way. I'm like, look, it's one of the big ones. They're pretty great. And I am having a great time. And then we go and we speak, and then we went to Boston Pizza, Canadian restaurant. Random. That in my mind was tying back to, I wanted to reference an American food chain, but I wasn't sure which ones were only in America. And that's what happened there. Wires got crossed. Anywho, and we drive back, and it's October. So we're driving back in the pitch black of night. When we're driving out, it is the beautiful, like that golden hour light and the vibrant reds and the sumac plants that are just, beautiful. Driving back, it is pitch black. Now, the road did not change. There was nothing about that road that changed except the light. And yet, with that light and without that light, everything changed. And how we saw that road changed. And for those of us who have done this work, man, we know what it is like to have that light and to have everything change, and yet nothing changed. Bear with me. Childhood got better. Childhood didn't change. Family got better. Family didn't change. The jerks on the road start to drive better. They didn't change. But how the jerks sharing at the meeting for too long? That's me, because I'm doing it. They didn't change, but how I see them changes. So light is not simply what I see. Light is the way in which I see. God is not simply what I see. And if you ask to see God, you will see God. You will see this power. You will. But also, it's like God is like the operating system in my brain. This way in which I see the world in a radically different way. Or operating system in my brain got a little techie. Sorry, Vivian, don't mention technology. My bad. Just teasing. But as Chuck Chamberlain referred to it, a new pair of glasses. I'd put on the glasses and the whole world has changed. Yet nothing out there has changed. So illuminating, letting God's light, that admitting is to let in, and letting in God's light, every twist of character, every cranny of the past. So that is how we do that 5th step. And then what follows are what is actually known as the actual 5th step promises. If you weren't here last week, The reason I'm emphasizing that is because if you reference what I call the Missy Elliott promises, people won't know what you're talking about. Because that's a weird little Paige thing that I do. And so this is the result of step 5. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. This is how we know. This is how we know that this whole thing is ineffable. Ineffable is to be experienced, to be understood. Yeah, you got it, girl. This is how we know this is experiential. Because anyone here have a look at that 5th step on the scroll on the wall at the meeting and thought, I bet I'll be delighted after that. None of us thought the result of step 5 would be delighted. But there is a lightness that happens after I let it all go. So once we have taken this step with holding nothing, we're delighted. We can look the world in the eye. And you see, I don't know about you, but when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was not looking anyone in the eye. I was intimately acquainted with the square of floor that was in front of me. You guys know what I mean? I was staring daggers into that floor. I wasn't looking anyone in the eye, but now I'm beginning to be able to look the world in the eye. What am I experiencing? Humility. Humility, which is to say that I'm no better than you, I'm no worse than you, and I'm reliant on God. That is humility. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. And I love when I get asked to do shares, again, I think because I have a very minimal attention span, I love doing big book bounce arounds where we bounce around the big book. And I have this whole talk that I do that is on the topic of loneliness. And I speak about how loneliness, I think loneliness is everything to do with a sense of separateness from other people. But that can't be true. See, if you're like me, you know what it is like to feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in the middle of a stadium full of other people. And if you're like me, you know what it is like to feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in a room full of other people, even a room full of other alcoholics. And if you're like me, you know what it is like to feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in the middle of a relationship. And if you're like me, you know what it is like to feel absolutely, utterly lonely and alone in the middle of an act of intimacy. And you see, loneliness has nothing to do with a sense of separateness from you. In part, you want to know why I know that? Because how often do we treat our loneliness with isolating? You know, I'm feeling really lonely. Let me just isolate, right? It has everything to do with a sense. And I'm going to say sense because it is not real. A sense, but it feels real. A sense of separateness from God. You can see in step 1, I have that experience where I know loneliness like no other human being can. But what has happened between me in step 1 and me in step 5? I've taken a course of action to clear away the stuff between me and this power, this God, this higher power, this creator, the spirit of the universe. And the result is that now I can be alone at perfect peace and ease. That is what we get to experience. It also goes on to say our fears fall from us. Do you know how powerful that is? My fears fall from us. And of course, our fears are going to fall because we're taking this leap of faith. We're doing this thing that we are scared to do. And we're being vulnerable and open. And it goes well or okay. You know, I've had ones that didn't go well, but it goes okay. But you know what's incredible about our fears falling from us? If my fears fall from us, I know I didn't do it. And that for me is the same pattern through which all my defects of character follow. If it falls from me, I didn't do it. I did not of myself overcome my fears. I wasn't a brave little toaster. I was a scaredy little spatula. Honestly, I don't know that these references are coming either. So I am as surprised as you are when I make them. And I was like, oh, yeah, Brave Little Toaster. I haven't seen that movie. I hear it's good. You guys are telling me that it's good, but if I don't know if I can have big feelers at the moment. So if it's sad, I don't know if I can watch it. I'm a sad little scared spatula. But you see, what I do is I take this course of action and I lean in to God and to God's love and to God's power, and the defects fall. I don't take them off. I don't overcome them. I don't beat up my fear. It falls from me. I didn't do it. I didn't deserve it. I didn't earn it. Man, it is grace. It falls from me. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. You see, it's step 2. The idea of God, higher power, creator, spirit of the universe, it is a conception. It is an idea. And for many of us, it is an over there sort of idea, that there could be a power, but it's over there. It's nowhere near me. But now I begin to experience the nearness of my Creator, which is to begin to experience reality, that conscious contact. And that's, again, like I was saying, like, I cannot stay well on the idea of a drink. Do you know what I mean? If you have the obsession on you, and you pull up YouTube and you pull up a bunch of like Budweiser commercials, or, like I was thinking the Super Bowl commercials where they have the beer that gets poured in slow motion, and you watch that again and again and again. That is a conception. That is an idea of a drink, and that will not give you relief. What I need is the experience of a drink. And it's like that with God. I can't stay well on the idea of a God or a conception of a power. What I need is experience with that power. And this power goes from being this over there idea to here and now in the moment with me, moving and now and near and here. That's what happens. So our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. So again, I cannot stay well on a belief. I need an experience, and we are beginning to have one. How do I get a spiritual experience in Alcoholics Anonymous? That is the sole purpose of the 12 steps. The 12 steps are the vehicle to take me from the hopelessness of step 1 to the spiritual awakening that is promised in step 12, and we begin to awaken on the road. But if I don't know, I'm doing a car metaphor, but if I pump the gas or pump the brakes and I stop here, that's going to slip away. That's going to slip away. But I'm beginning to have a spiritual experience, and that's what I'm after, an experience. And here's how we know. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. I will often have that feeling that the drink problem is gone. Now keep in mind, what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous is we treat the spiritual malady. The spiritual malady is the conscious sense of separateness from God. And I treat that with conscious contact with God. I fill the hole in the depth of my soul, the emptiness, the loneliness, the depression, the pain, the shame, the guilt. I fill that with God. And when that is filled with God, I don't have the obsession of the mind. If I don't have the obsession of the mind, I won't take that first drink, and I won't set off the allergy. That's what we do here. And so that is why we're beginning to have this experience. I'm filling that hole in the depth of my soul with this power. And now the obsession to drink falls. That is how we do this. And it says we feel that we are on the capital B, capital H, broad highway, walking hand in hand with this capital S, capital U, spirit of the universe, hand in hand. And if this metaphor, this visual doesn't resonate with you, that's okay. But I love that idea that I'm not walking alone, that my hands are being held by God's hands. That, and like my job as a sponsor, my job is to take that sponsee, that newcomer, to take their hand and put it in God's hands. That is my job. Now, when we previously, in We Agnostics, we spoke about the broad highway. It's like, come join us on the broad highway. Now we're on the broad highway, capital B, capital H. I point out the capitalizations because these are synonyms for God. Words that mean the same thing, pointing to this power. And I will point out that it is the broad highway, not vacation destination, not like, ooh, Punta Cana, Mexico, or like Veradero, Cuba. Like I have arrived, here I am, where's my virgin margarita? Let's get my beach towel out. Like, what are we doing? No, broad highway. That this is a way of life. This is how we live our life. It is not that I have arrived. It is a journey. It is a path. It is a direction. It is a way. And I get to be on this. And again, with the spirit of the universe. I'm not walking this thing alone. And those are the 5th step promises. And again, I emphasize, because we have promises all throughout the book. And I'm not going to knock those 9th step promises, but when we call them the promises, as if they're the only ones, man, we miss out on these. We got some rad promises. Now, what follows is the direction for what is known as the quiet hour. And I'll share with you my experience of my first ever 5th step. The first 5th step I ever gave, rather than, like when I did my first one with my first sponsor. And unfortunately, how it ended up, we had to do it in 2 sittings. And it was a week apart. And that was really instructive for me, because my experience was that week sucked. That was not fun for me. I was feeling the feels. I did not like it. So when I work with my sponsees, I like to get her done. I like to sit and like all day, we're going to do it. Let's crush it out. Now that's what I like to do. That's what I prefer. I find that to be helpful, but there's a lot of reasons people can't always do that. And that's okay. If you have to split it up, I would suggest doing it like consecutive days rather than waiting a week. That's my suggestion. But I'm a like, let's get her done, which is maybe how we ended up here. But that's how I like to approach it. Now, I believe it was the second part of the 5th step, I left and I did, God bless her, my sponsor, she did not give me these directions. I don't think she knew, and like she's doing the best she can. No judgment. I go to a meeting and I start feeling some feelers. I'm not feeling this delighted. I'm feeling like, oh no, like it's building and I'm the worst person that ever lived. And oh man, I suck. I hate myself. And so I did what I thought I was supposed to do. So I call up my sponsor. And I'm like, girl, I never called her girl. That is not how I ever spoke to her. But I was like, hey, like I'm feeling like this bag of garbage. And she said, pray about it. And so I was like, okay, because I follow directions, and I prayed about it. And then what I did was I slammed my pinky in the car door. And you might think, now some of you might think, oh, delightful, God has answered your prayer. This girl, I shocked all of us, can multitask. Did you know that I can think about how much my finger hurts and what a piece of garbage I am at the exact same time? I can multitask. It was not the answer to the prayer that I had hoped. And so I am so big on the quiet hour. That quiet hour I'm such a proponent of, because it really has been that pressure release valve. For if I have those feelings and emotions that are building up, it is the next direction for a reason. So it says, returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour. That is 60 minutes. I don't know how many seconds. I could do that math. I cannot do that math. But a full hour. Now, when I work with my sponsees from the beginning, I ask them to meditate. I say, like, meditation, like I want you to pick this up as a practice. And I will say I have had all of them complain about meditation at the beginning, but I have never had anyone that actually did it complain about me asking them to meditate. By the time we got to this quiet hour, I'm like, pretty glad we got some experience with a little bit of quiet. So returning home, we find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. So the purpose of this hour is this meditative review of the actions we have taken up until this moment. We thank God. And so this is the prayer. Y'all know that there was a prayer right in the middle, in between 5 and 6, the prayer. So we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better, which is so beautiful, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build this relationship. Also, it's bottom of page 75 if you're trying to find it. I am trying to build this relationship with this power. And as a result of clearing away this stuff, I'm beginning to know this power better. It says, taking the book down from our shelf, we turn to the page which contains the 12 steps, page 59. Carefully reading the first 5 proposals, we ask if we have admitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. Is our work solid so far? Are the stones properly in place? Have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? Have we tried to make mortar without sand? So, construction metaphors. And I am super handy. That's not true. If I can Google it, I can sometimes figure it out. Unless I'm a little overstimulated, in which case I'm like, no, I can't do it. But construction is that idea, have I left anything off? Is the work solid so far? So have I been fearless and thorough in each of these steps, in each of these actions? Are the stones properly in place? And you can imagine if you're building an archway, if the stones aren't in place, man, it's going to be off kilter. It's going to fall. Have we skimped on the cement put in the foundation? If there's no cement in the foundation, again, what's it going to do? Kilter over. Have we tried to make mortar without sand? The sand is what begins to allow the mortar to hold together. So if I have mortar without sand, I got slop. And it is going to fall over. And so what I have done is I have shared many 5th steps. And as a result of that, I've done the quiet hour many different ways. And so I'll just share with you some of my experiences with doing the quiet hour. And in part, I don't got a whole bunch of time, but in part because we don't always talk about it. It's like, what am I supposed to do? Quiet for an hour. Go, what it says, because that's what my sponsor told me to do. Just go figure it out. And I'm like, I actually need more help than that. So I know you guys don't, but I need more help than that. And so I've done it a number of ways. 60 minutes is an hour. So I've set a timer. And so what that means is that's 10-minute increments. So I set a timer to go off every 10 minutes. And I spent 10 minutes sitting with each step. I know. Paige, you bring the 6th step into the quiet hour. Yep, every single time. Every time. Can't stop me. I do it all the time. My 6th step just comes right into that quiet hour. That's my bad. Are they separate? Yep. Do I do it? Also, yeah. And so I spent 10 minutes sitting with step 1. Do I have a firm understanding and experience of step 1? 10 minutes with 2. And some of those felt really long, but it was kind of cool to see what would come up. 10 minutes with 3, 10 minutes with 4, 10 minutes with that 5. And I got those defects, 10 minutes with those. And that's one way that I've done it. And that might be really helpful for people who are like, I need structure. I do need structure, but I'm like, also, I've done it, I've done it like, a little loosey-goosey. And it's actually my favorite is to come to that quiet hour. Yes, I know, don't worry, I see the time. I'm just trying to land the plane. The landing gear is out. We're cleared for runway. Bottom of page 75, please be quiet soon. I got you. One is where this is my fave, is just to spend the hour and let God direct me to where I need to be, to sit in that meditative place. And the last time I did my quiet hour, it was kind of like weather like this, where it's like, oh, it's lovely. And I did my quiet hour. It doesn't say to do this, but I had a bunch of peanuts. So I sat and I put out a bunch of peanuts and watched the magpies get them. And it was a beautiful metaphor for my defects of character. Like, oh, go get them. But here's what I will end on. I got you. It says we asked. Now, of course, I'm going to ask myself, have I been thorough? Have I been fearless? Have I done these things? Is there anything that I'm missing? But what do I always say? If it says we ask, that's a prayer. So I love the idea of asking God, is there anything I've admitted? Is there anything have I tried to make mortar without sand? And I let that power then let me know. I will know. And that's us. I'll leave it there. We'll pick up 6 and 7, maybe a little review of the quiet hour. Over to you, Vivian.